just so you know, we have about 30 minutes total, but I guess you wanted this meeting for what reason, just so I know, I understand.
Well, yeah, my concerns and
what are
my angst.
Yeah.
So are you going to direct it, or you want me to just ask questions, or what?
Well, you wanted to meet, so I think it would be more important for us to know what you wanted to meet about, what your angst about, what your questions are.
Okay. I guess initially, why is it that, you probably discussed this amongst yourself, but why is it that I was not included in the original decision to medicate my child?
Okay. I feel like when that happened, I was more than open. I think I said to you, you're being involved in it, so if you were not involved, I have no idea why that didn't happen. Particularly,
yeah, I mean, I think we acknowledge that was, you know, probably should have happened on our part. You know, it was a situation where Mom did have full custody, so, you know, legally, you know, it wasn't really...
Well, I know legally.
Right, but Gary, honestly, I think this is going to be a waste of the doctor's time.
Well, that's why I asked initially.
Yeah.
I have no...
And I've taken
on a personal level, I have no
for that.
problem. In fact, I probably would prefer both parents being involved, because my issue is that I'm not doing therapy. I'm trying to get input of information. I'm like a detective, so, and all I want is information, so I can do the best I can.
Well, that would have behooved you initially to include me.
And that's why I don't have control of everything. And all I can say is I was always open and probably said I would like all the parties involved. If it didn't happen, sometimes if you didn't have full custody or whatever that was,
right, and
it's a temporary situation.
Right, but Mom was in the process of pursuing that.
This is going to be a long conversation. If you want to have it with the therapist, that's fine. But
we have a half an hour. I can ask these questions within a half an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, the way I look at it, you know, I don't like to asperge people very much, but Suzanne...
You don't like to what?
Asperge.
Yeah, okay.
People very much. Suzanne, she has a certain condition of her own, and of course she doesn't come in and tell anybody. She doesn't even believe it herself. But you probably depended extremely much upon her characterization of Anya, and how Anya was reacting, and her own angst and her own problems. Not to mention that after you started the medication, you probably depended upon Suzanne once again to come back with reports and whatnot to tell you what was happening. The thing is, I was not only not included, I was not even informed that it was happening. It wasn't like somebody called me up and said, hey, you know, your daughter is about to be medicated, or she's in therapy in the process of being medicated, and, you know, would you like to be a part of that? And I'm like, I didn't know. The only time that I had known was when my daughter told me, it's a big secret, Daddy. Mommy's giving me a pill every day, and it makes me feel bad, and I don't know what to do.
I mean, I hear you, and you know, you as the father have every legal right and should be involved as whatever has been laid down. And I think I think I'm repeating myself again, but I can understand if I were you how I would feel too, and feel left out. And if she had full custody at that time and didn't include you, that's unfortunate, and I agree with you that you're involved now is what's important. The thing about how I make a decision, it's not just her input. It's the therapist's input, it's the school input, and also whenever I make a psychiatric diagnosis, as I did with your daughter, I never make it only myself. I always try to make sure that I always get a second opinion. And what I did was get a psychological testing to really give me other support about what I'm seeing, because I think it really is important not just to take one opinion, because I agree with you 100%. You're absolutely right.
Well, who else? Well, okay, as far as the therapy, who else did you consult? What did they say? Well, I'm trying to catch up here.
Yeah,
a year later.
So you haven't had any input about this in school?
You got a copy of both the psychiatric evaluation.
Well, yeah, a year later, sure.
Right, but
that doesn't give me detail. That doesn't give me one-on-one.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear on what you're talking about. What information he?
Who else? You said you consulted other people other than Suzanne in assessing.
We have the input from the school. We have the input from the therapist observing her, And I also, besides my evaluation, got the assessment from the psychologist. And I agree with you. I mean, you have to get all of those together.
And the people who are most important are the ones who are with her all the time. You probably rely on Suzanne's reports and her input.
What I think you're not hearing what I'm saying is two things. I think, yes, for some information, the parents are extremely important. But also for people who can observe a child in a way that's not emotionally involved, I think getting it from the teacher and by getting it from a therapist is also extremely important. Because I think, if you're not the parent, you can see things in a less emotionally involved way. The other reason I have a psychological is because these are standardized responses. When you do projectives and you do a Rorschach, it's not because I feel that way. This is based on an accumulation of responses that you get that are standardized, so that you can get information and a diagnosis and implications that are not because of I feel this way or an emotional reaction.
You're saying there's an objective standard by which...
So I think, when I keep saying it, is that I think there's two issues here. You are the father and should have been involved, and I think if things were different, I can't undo let me finish, I'll give you time. I can't undo what happened. I can't undo the fact that whether it was temporary or not, that your wife had that control at that time. I can only say at this time, you're more than invited to anything and everything.
Now that it's beyond any activity, any input from me. I mean, yeah, input, informal input, sure, why not? The thing is, a huge decision.
Why is it beyond?
Why? Because I feel this is a one-way street for my daughter. She's not coming off of this stuff. And it's hard for her to come off of it. I've read up on it now that I know what it is.
Why is it hard for her to come off of it?
Because whatever, over a year that she's gotten used to this, her mind has shifted. She's a young child. I mean, she's just growing right now. And that's another thing. I don't think that you want to, and I'm kind of vested from any strength to do so.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
About what?
Just what you said.
Vested.
Vested in what?
Well, vested from any ability to do so.
Well, you know what? I think what I'm trying to reach out to you and say, look, I understand the hurt you're feeling. And
you're interrupting me too many times, but go ahead. I mean, I want to say something, and you say, hold on. Okay, what I want to say simply is, I don't know if you're aware of the fact that I'm not getting to see my daughter currently for more than an hour, slightly more than an hour a week. Okay? This is the result, fundamentally, of me not being informed of what had gone down. All right? My daughter being medicated with this drug, and it being a big secret, and me getting paranoid about it because she's telling me it's a big secret, and she's telling me all these horrible feelings that she's getting from it. Okay? So what do? I try to find out what it is. I didn't know you. I didn't know Mary Ellen. I didn't know anybody at the time. And so all I did was ask her a question. I said, well, what's it look like? What's it supposed to do? She didn't know the name of it, so I looked up and trying to find out what it was on the internet. And then because I did that, because nobody told me anything, Anya has the reaction that since I'm nervous, she should be nervous too. And of course she should be nervous because I'm nervous and her father's nervous. What do you expect? So what happens then? She has those tantrums. She has a breakdown. She didn't want to take it. The medication. I heard she had a fight with you or something. She didn't want to see.
One of the pieces though of information was that she was under the assumption that this medication was going to kill her. That's what she came out of that conversation with you. That's what she came into this office saying.
On the assumption, huh?
I mean, you're telling me that you never said that to her.
I told her I don't know what it is. It could be anything.
Okay, but this is what she came out of that interaction with, and why it wasn't just she was picking up on you being nervous. She believed that this medication was going to kill her.
Well, she's not a stupid kid, okay? She looks at me, she sees me looking on the internet, all nervous. She just said she had like a heart thing. She was just dancing. Of course she makes associations. She's not dumb. And she concludes something that I was nervous about myself, of course. So what do you think? Nobody tells me anything, And all of a sudden, she has this reaction, and of course I react to it. If I didn't react to it, then I would be negligent. But what happens is my reaction causes her reaction, causes your reaction, causes CPS's reaction, and now I'm taken away from my daughter for 10 months now, maybe going on a year, when there's no substance to me being a danger to my kid at all. That's why I'm so frustrated and downright furious.
See, I'm not sure that I follow the links that you made just now.
Okay,
And
I can explain.
I'm not sure that I follow the link of that if you as a father justifiably are concerned that you've been left out of the decision making, that your reaction should be transmitted to your daughter or in front of her like that. Because I would think that if you had those reactions, you would talk to the professionals or somebody.
What professionals?
Or
Who?
any professional. Let me finish. And really be able to separate out and not let your emotions spill over into somebody and have her react. I don't remember in any way that we were trying to influence or cause your not having contact with your daughter. So I'm not clear that it feels like you're implying that we did that to you. And I don't have any
I don't think you affirmatively
idea of
did it.
What?
I said I don't think you affirmatively did it, but I think it was not right to say, well, where's the dad? What is his input on this? Why are we totally ignoring any source of information and feedback?
But I think you didn't hear what I said in the beginning, is that when we started, I did want your feedback.
But it went nowhere.
But
Your
I
wants.
think you have to understand that I don't have control of the world. And I agree with your frustration. And I feel like we're going over it in circles. And
It'll wink out. Don't worry. I'll get the point shortly.
What I'm saying is that I don't disagree with you. And when this assessment started, as any assessment, I want to get the inputs of both the parents. I don't think we disagree with you. I don't have the legal right to have people come in unless they're allowed to come in. So I don't have control of all that. But do I want your input? Yeah.
Okay, quick question on that.
That's what you need to understand.
I understand. Quick question on that. If you had that desire and you expressed it, who did you express it to, and why did it wink out to the point where I wasn't even informed of the beginnings of anything, of nothing?
I can only tell you that when the process here is that the therapists know and the seniors know when that is occurring, to have as much input as we can, and as much as we are allowed to have come in, that's allowed, and whoever has custody. And if it's not allowed, I can't make a decision to override it.
It wasn't not allowed.
Right, but nor does he, in his time frame, look into it. So he takes the information from me. I gave the information to Suzanne. I had instructed her to let you know at one point. I don't know if it was about the initial evaluation. I know it was about the medication. And we had talked about, you needing to know at that point you were having unsupervised
See, that's
visits.
important to me.
And so I did, and I have it documented somewhere because I remember going back and checking that I did talk to Suzanne
That's
about
believable
discussing
to
it
me.
with you.
At some point you said to her, the dad should be involved. You said at some point to Suzanne, the dad should be involved. And then Suzanne took it upon herself to say, the dad is not going to be involved.
Right, and because she was in the midst of a court process there, and that's when
No
I think...
excuse.
No, I'm just saying, but that's, as a therapist, that's when I tend to back out of it, and I've accepted responsibility for that. We've been over that before.
Well, you can accept responsibility up to the point where you told her to tell me and she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your fault after that.
Right, and those are just the ongoing issues between you and Suzanne that continue to impact Anya,
All I can say, it was a travesty that I was not informed, and this is huge. I mean, it's my child, and she's being given, from what I've read, I don't know what you think of it, from what I've read, it has potential side effects of horrible proportions. The biggest one I'm always worried about is tardive dyskinesia. I mean, permanent tics. Why? Why? Just because she has tantrums?
See, I think again that as a parent, I would be concerned too, and that's why I don't give these medications without great hesitation and without getting a second opinion. And I think again, and I don't want to keep going in the circle.
I understand.
Let me finish. You read both our reports. You read the psychological, and when you keep referring back to it as tantrums, I think you're really sort of not looking at...
Well, you see, you never got my input on this. She doesn't have tantrums with me.
I think you need to... she's not giving the medication for tantrums. And I think if we go back to...
Well, I don't know this, right?
But you do know it, because if you did you read the
I did read the psychological.
I don't understand how you're telling me that it's tantrums.
Did you read them? I mean, they are so brief, they're so desultory, they go all over the place. They talk about some things in significance, sure, but there's no way to make a cohesive picture of what's going on there.
They're so brief.
The notes that you gave me.
There are 3, 4, 5 pages each of notes.
Yes.
Well, you know, you can make your... Look, I'm not here to question it. You can make... That's what a report is. You can question it any way you want.
I'm not questioning it. You said I should know by reading those notes.
Well, I think that there's a difference between... Because I know you got a lot of records, so I think there's a difference between, like, his actual notes and then the actual evaluations, which were done, which are pretty comprehensive. So I don't know how you could read them and not...
Okay, well, let me ask you directly. If it's not for the tantrums, what was it for?
What do you think? If you've read the notes, see, that's where I'm not going to get into this, because I think what I'm thinking is this is a process where you're still dealing with the fact that you are not part of this process. I acknowledge that. I had no control over it. But I think when we're getting into it, when you're asking what it was for, it's almost like you're dismissing the assessments, the 2 assessments. One is really standardized by the projective testing and the Rorschach, and you're calling it tantrums. And what I'm saying to you is, there's nothing for me to justify. It's right there in front of you.
So it's not the tantrums.
For reality testing, psychotic process, there's a mood disorder, there's severe family history of all of this, and you keep going back to tantrums. So,
okay, severe family history. Where did you get that from?
That's the input we got.
From Suzanne.
I think you also are missing the fact that you keep looking at the reports and talking about tantrums, and you're not really dealing with what it said. And you really need to think about that, because you're dismissing all the
I'm not dismissing. That's why I'm here to talk to you about it.
But the point is, it feels like you're really talking to me because you're still angry and in an argument.
Well,
this is what it feels like.
I am angry, of course.
I know that, but that's what I think needs to be dealt with. I think we're really not dealing with what's going on here. And I think what's really going on here is that you felt left out. I acknowledge that. I understand that feeling. I think we're saying, as we're offering to you, that shouldn't have happened. I had no control of it.
Now you're going over what you said before. I understand that.
Yeah, but I think that's what I think is really important, because the questions you're asking me were answered. You're looking at it as, well, I don't understand why you gave the meds for it, but I think if you did read the assessments, you would know. And you did read it. So I think what you're really asking me is not what you're asking me, and I think that's important for me to point out to you.
Okay, now that you pointed that out, when I walked in, I said, you be the director, you let me know what this is about, what we should be talking about. And you said, no, Gary, you do. You say what you need to say.
Because you know what? I didn't set this meeting up, you did.
I did.
And because of that, I didn't ask for this.
Okay, but now you're corralling me in. Now you're saying this is not an appropriate question.
I'm not saying it's an appropriate question. I'm trying to say to you that the question you're asking, I think this is really what we're talking about.
Well, I'm trying to get to that now.
But that's what we're talking about.
Well, now you said I'm dismissing all these things. Okay, now I'm asking you directly. You think that I should be informed only by those notes. I'm here to talk to you about this. Okay? We're here talking now. Okay? My question is, what kind of an assessment, particularly psychosis, where on earth did you get psychosis from in her? You're talking about standardized tests. That's just...
You know what, again, I think then you really need to think about what you read. When people talk about hearing voices, when people cannot test reality, when people don't know what's going on, when people get lost in, not only having tantrums, but get lost in it for hours at a time. When this happens and they act inappropriately, not only at home but at school, separate from, from when you also get on standardized testing that under stress, there's a psychotic process that's ongoing. I think that's, and no one's giving her a definitive, because if anything, the diagnosis I gave at the end was a combination of the pervasive and the rule out of mood and psychotic process, that there was that going on. I think that's based on some real facts there. And I don't have anything else that I can explain to you. You can disagree with it all you want.
And I could have had input, but that's under the bridge now. Now I'm here to talk to you. Input, right? This is what ostensibly I think we're here to talk about, right? Input. That's why I asked you. You seem to have a better idea of what our conversation is supposed to be and not supposed to be about. Okay, you said that I can't, or that we've addressed, that you've read in the notes. You should know about that. This is what I've assessed. You're kind of like.
You want to say what the input is that you want to talk about?
Yes, I do. Anya, you never heard this. Anya used to be able to concentrate very well on things like chess, on detailed assembly of things.
Right.
Now her mind is kind of flattened out from these things. She's more interested in watching TV, Invader Zim, the finer things that we used to do. She just does not concentrate on them anymore. Of course, you know the drug is supposed to do something, okay? I believe, and I saw it in her, it was radical, and I didn't know what was going on. These changes, you never heard from me. I'm still concerned about this. I don't appreciate my daughter being dosed with psychotic medication, anti-psychotic medication. I mean, these are psychotropic drugs. Her mind is just growing. You believe that she needs this medication to address what I consider, because I'm her dad, I have lived with her for 7 years every day, okay? This ideation of imaginary people and places and things, this is literally imagination. She makes up stories, imaginary friends, imaginary places. We talked about it in detail. She's quite coherent about it. She knows it's imagination. But you see her for just a little bit. You see Suzanne's reports. And so you conclude that she's got a psychosis or a psychotic tendency because of that. I don't see that.
Sure.
And I want her to grow up natural in her head. A growing mind should not, in my opinion, should not be modified with an external substance when it's truly, in my opinion, elective. Okay? Yes, she has tantrums. Of course, look at what she's gone through for the past year. Her father has been ripped away from her. You don't think that has no effect? I mean, it certainly does. These tantrum things that the Geodon, you say, was not supposed to address, I'm not sure if you're saying it was or wasn't. She still has tantrums. She still has these things. Whenever a frustration hits her, and she doesn't see me, and I'm not a moderating force in her life right now. So all these things are situational, in my opinion, as opposed to inherent. I mean, she's growing. Her mind is growing. She's beginning to see the world. And this is a thud, in my opinion. It takes the polish off her scintillating mind. And I am not happy with her on it. I would prefer very much if we could wean her off. This is my concern, and this is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I hear you.
So, I don't know what is necessary in your ken to do that within your purview, but that's what I want.
But, I mean, it's good to hear what you want and how you see it. And I'm saying that's part of the input that we need. But there's also the other parts of the input.
Which is?
Which is what I said already about the school, the mother, the therapist, the assessment ideas, and the psychological. And I understand you have your own assessment of what happened and see it as, and I've already said how other assessments, which are really standardized, see it differently. I can understand how you see that. Would I prefer, if it was my child, not to have the child on the antipsychotic? Obviously. And do I put a child on that without telling all the possibilities of adverse effects and long-term effects? Of course I tell.
You tell the child?
I tell both people.
Really?
Everybody.
Did you tell the child what the name of the drug was?
I told everything.
Really?
And I also spoke to her primary care doctor. And again, I think what we're really talking about is that you've been left out of this process. And I understand that.
Well, I'm not talking about that anymore, am I?
I know that. I'm talking about the tone and the feeling that you have because we keep going back in circles, I feel.
Oh, I'm not circling anymore. This is new stuff.
No, but I think with the tone you're talking about,
Yeah, my tone, sure.
you keep going back to it's just daydreams, fantasies and stuff.
Yes, I do.
And I feel like, I can't give you anything more than what we did in terms of assessment and the reports you have. You can disagree with it, which is your right, but I think it's there.
You're saying it's my right to disagree?
It's not even a right, you just disagree.
Obviously.
There's nothing else I can say. I mean, you're saying that everything we did is not valid.
I'm not saying everything you did is invalid.
No, but you're saying the assessments we all did is not valid. And I said, okay, you can see it that way.
I say that you missed a huge source of input on these matters.
Well, there's nothing I can do about it.
If Suzanne was not involved, you would have come to this conclusion anyway. If her feedback...
All I know is if Suzanne were not involved, and she had these behaviors, and she was behaving like this in school, and the testing was as it is, that would have been the conclusion, whether you believe that or not, whether you had that input. The only thing may have been if you were the only parent involved, you may have not wanted to come here. So if you didn't come here, we wouldn't have done the assessment. But that is separate from the fact that the school and the testing came out. The school and the testing did come out with those results because Suzanne's input. I think you're not really getting that. That input is separate.
I am getting it. I'm dismissing it.
You're getting it for what?
But fairly much dismissing it as improper interpretation.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you can, and I think that's what it comes down to. I can't do anything about your interpretation, and that's why I feel like we're really talking about something else. And that's fine. But that's where you are right now in this process with your daughter. And I really mean this. This is what's important. Where you are in this process with your daughter, and the fact that you don't have the contact with your daughter that you really want, and I feel like you really deserve. And that's where Mike comes in to help you with that. You can dismiss all the assessments. It's not a right, just that you can do it. You can do whatever you want.
I can't do whatever I want. That's what's so frustrating.
In your mind, you can do whatever you want, but this is what you could also do in your mind. You can decide to say, okay, this is where it's at. We can't undo what happened. You should have, and I wish you had been involved, and I wanted you to. But from now on, you really need to look at what your role is in all of this, so that you can have more contact with your daughter, more influence, more input with all the people who are treating her. And I'm more than open to that.
Are you?
I was open to it right in the beginning. When you say
I believe that.
You know what?
At the beginning you were open to it, but now you're committed to this.
No, I don't think, I think you already are coming, and I really want you to think about what you're saying. You're putting judgments and conclusions on us.
In a vacuum, I am, yes.
And I think you have to decide if that's really the way it is, then what are you doing? You're just coming here out of anger.
I'm not coming out here out of only anger and frustration.
If you really want to see it, I'm telling you, and I really mean that, I'm not emotionally involved in this. I do not feel that I like to maintain kids on medications. If they could be off this kind of medication and they behave, they should be off of it. Your role in all of this, I think that's really what we're talking about that's important. However you can enhance that, and enhance that with her and the time you are with her, that would be great.
What is your concern of taking her off of it? What do you think might happen?
I think it's just the reason that she was on. Her behavior in school and elsewhere was really out of control at times.
And you've seen it gotten better?
It was so inappropriate that it was skewing her development.
And you've seen it get better?
It has gotten better.
Yes, I mean significantly in school. She was at the point where, she was requiring physical restraints and in the timeout room.
Yeah, and when I heard about this, I was freaking out.
This is in the MAPS program. I witnessed it. I've seen it, I mean, it's, and now she's doing much, much better. I mean, is it all medication? I'm sure it's not. But, I mean, there's nobody else around saying, wow, this medication is having any negative effect. Nobody who's coming in contact with her is saying that. I mean, the social worker, the school teachers, I'm in regular contact with the waiver workers. I mean, there's a lot of other people involved. So nobody's seeing any negative side effects from the medication at this point.
Yeah, nobody. Okay.
You know, that's
I do.
all right.
No, I hear you, and I think, you know, your input with the school, input with all of us. You know, I want you to think about what you said. I mean, I really am open to your input. I really do not need to keep kids on medication. It is not my interest.
If we were to take her off, you don't want to take her off, obviously. What would be the process? You know that Suzanne more or less did this with her previous daughter. I don't know if you're aware of that. To this very day, 30-year-old, she's still taking meds. Okay? And I don't want this to happen to Anya. So you start them so early. This is anathema.
Right.
I believe it's elective. I don't think that Anya has such horrible reactions, normal reactions without the medication that she has to be. I know we're going in circles, of course. That's a half an hour.
I wanted you to know that I've only known Gary for a couple of weeks now. He just came.
Okay.
So I'm a new player in this situation, and you know, one of the problems, of course, is that, which is not anything that you have any power over, is that Gary only gets to see his daughter once a week for an hour. So any influence that he has is extremely limited, and it's supervised.
Right.
And, you know, it's not. I can't even imagine being my children in those circumstances. It's just that itself is a very devastating blow to Gary and also any influence. I mean, I've known him for a couple of weeks now, and you know, I have actually a favorable impression about this man sitting.
Sure. And it's good. I mean, so whatever that.
His heart is definitely in the right place here.
Yeah. And I think whatever that can be developed so that the input and autonomy he has with his daughter is increased, that would be good. And as that happens, and you're working with all of us, and things improve with her, and she could be on a lower dose. Just to give you a little synopsis of
that's
what I
what
would do. If her behaviors increase, I mean, even if somebody misinterprets reality, but they're not doing anything that's harmful to anybody, and they can function, they can have their meds reduced.
And taken off, possibly.
Absolutely. So let's all work together on this. That's what I'm trying to say. I am really not committed to keeping kids on meds, and I do take kids off meds. And I think if you read the report, one of the biggest things about her having her psychotic reactions is stress. And I'm not blaming that on you. It's stress. Anytime parents are divorced, anytime parents are separate, anytime there is that stress is going to dysregulate a child who's developing. So the more we all work together for her good.
Yeah, I believe that can be done from the outside.
I'm talking about
I don't think it has
her mother,
drugging.
everybody.
Just doesn't. Not for my daughter. I don't think that drugging, but whatever. That drugging was necessary.
All right. No, I heard you, and I'll take that in. Okay. So.
Okay.
Thank you.